issue number 2 that I've run into. These T-slots are not in line with the center line of that ram. And I don't have enough play in these counterbore holes to move this plate back far enough yet. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Welcome back to Power Forging Workshop. I have finally finished my new plate for the fly press. It's taken me a long time. Just been working on it in moments that I've had between, you know, other jobs that I'm doing, but I'm done now. Yeah, let's put it on this fly press and see how it looks. You know, before I take this one off and put the new one on, it might be worthwhile to rewind to where I started. I originally built this fixture plate so that I had a place to put dies. This is one of my first dies that I did to be able to punch slots to make bottle openers or whatever else you might want to do a slot punch with. But I found it cumbersome. You know, this center line, and this is what I call my 0 point. That's why I call this a 0 point place, is because this center line, I always had to kind of bring this ram down and then adjust this just perfectly so that it was centered with this die and it wasn't, you know, crooked to the die or forward or back. And I have messed that up before, and I've haven't been completely center with this die. And really I took inspiration from my mill, from my the precision side, the CNC machining. I bought a base plate last year from Silver CNC, and it was a 0 point base plate, which allows me to pull off a vise, put on another vise, do production work. But every time you put a vise in, right, it's repeatable, it's accurate, it's rapid. So I wanted to bring the same thing to my fly press. So let's go ahead and pull this off. It's held on here by these 2 bolts and then T-nuts in these T-slots. Let me go ahead and pull this off, and then I'll slide the other one on here. Oh, well, actually, first of all, I digress. These are the bolts for this die. Okay, and then these holes, I've already taken one off, but these holes hold this base plate to the fly press. So let's take this off. And these are, I believe, 5/16 or 3/8. I don't even remember. All right. Not too bad. The next one is going to be much heavier. Before I put the plate on, I need to clean this up a little bit. Maybe a little bit of surface rust. Before I put the plate on this time, I'm going to spray on some, what is this stuff called? I'll spray on some LPS3, so that mating surface. This is WD-40, by the way. I buy it in bulk, and I use it as cleaner, actually. Whenever I'm cleaning bare metal instead of a soap, it does just as good of a job and removes water, right? WD-30 water displacement formula 30, right? Okay. I think I'll hit this with some steel wool, clean it again, and then use this LPS, and then I'll bring this this plate over. Now, if this were on my mill or on either of my mills, I'd be stoning this. But blacksmithing, well, at least for me, is not that precise. Okay, this will be enough. It's not precision machining. I could do it, but I think this will work. The mating surface of that plate isn't precise anyway. All right, let me get a paper towel. Let's wipe this off. Whoops. There we are. Wait for this to dry. Okay, so this is LPS3, Premier Rust Inhibitor. Long-term protection, leaves a soft, waxy, self-healing film. And since I don't plan on taking this plate off for a while, I'm going to use this. All right. Whoa. This nozzle's not happy. Leave a little film there. This is a little bit heavier than the other one. So, voila. Here's the plate done. On the underside here, let me point out this plate. You know, this took several operations to get to this point, to where it's functioning. Okay, so this plate, it took several operations to get to this point. I spent some time on the manual mill putting in these mounting holes. I made a custom mounting plate in the CNC mill where I could, fixture this and do the operations on the top side, including this hardy hole. Let me pull that out. Pull that out. So I've got a little hole here, for example, when I'm punching, to allow whatever's punched out, the material that's punched out, to go through here. And then conversely, I can still do work on top here and use this kind of as an anvil. This is hardened 4140. I had to flip this plate in the mill, finish up the T-slots, and then hollow out the area for my fastening mechanism. And basically, it's a series of rods where this bolt spreads two small rods, pinning rods, and then in turn pushes two other rods in to push on into this area to tighten onto two retention knobs. And in the end, what this looks like is, this being the 0 point, the center of the axis of this ram, I will be able to repeatedly place my bottom dies and then tighten them here. And it doesn't take much to tighten this down. And it's locked in place. Interestingly enough, during this project, I bought these pre-made, these retention knobs from Fifth Axis, and I designed everything around using these. These are 16 millimeter OD. But interestingly enough, during the process, I discovered, from this tightening screw here, that this is a smooth jacket, right? This is also 16 millimeter and fits down here perfectly. So, and these are pennies on the dollar versus, I don't know what those are, 25 bucks a piece. So on future setups, I actually plan, unless I need to have a situation where I don't want where the die might be, trying to pull up, like there's an upward force when you pull it out. If it's just all downward force, I plan on using these and screwing these directly into the dies. Whoops. Tightening these up, and then these lock in just as well, and they're precise enough for it to work. So it's pretty cool. And then I have these shorter ones. I didn't know exactly which size I wanted, so I have a bag of these shorter ones, and I plan on just throwing these in here if I don't have a die on, right? And then that'll allow me to use this top surface, and then debris won't, fall into those open holes. I suppose in the future I could get some 16mm plugs like this 4140 and use those instead. But for now, that's pretty good. This isn't really a feature that I need at the moment, so I have time. But it's nice to have these options. So if my future dies, and I plan on doing some future. I have a whole lineup of tools. Obviously, I'm a coin maker, so I want to have a bottom die to place a 1 inch or below coin die, and then it'll be perfectly centered every time, so I can mint coins. I'm excited to explore all the options. Butchers, fullers, the whole bit. Anything, round punches, hinge forming die, the whole bit. I plan on exploring that this year. Oh, and then lastly, let's take a look at this fence that I have set up here. I went through a few different designs, but I think I like this design the best. So I can bring this fence forward, and it almost comes center line. But if I'm running a vein down some square stock, for example, I can find exactly where I want it, tighten this down, and then run that stock along there with the veining tool, right, and get what I want. Let's say I want to put in a decorative angle piece. I've designed this in such a way that I can move this on angle or this angle. I guess it just depends on what you want to do. That was probably unnecessary, but I did want to take some weight off here, and I did want to capitalize on just the size of this handle. Just a little added flexibility. Just honestly, looking at it now, I don't know how helpful that would be unless these came all the way forward. Oh well, it's something. It's something, right? All right, so I hope you can kind of get a glimpse of my vision here. I still have some work to do, but I think you can understand what I want to accomplish here. I want to rapidly, consistently, and accurately replace these bottom dies, and this plate will let me do that. Coupled with my own design of a tool holder, well, this is part of the system. I want to move away from tools that require this stop flange, okay? I always have the option of doing that and going straight in there, but I want to use a tool holder, okay? And then I want everything to be, based off that 0-point philosophy. So for example, this punch here, I've got a flat here. So when this goes in here, this is flat. I've got a flat here. So when this tool holder goes in here, it's flat. And then everything will be in line, right, in all directions, X, Y, and then be able to interface every time I want to switch out a die. So that's part of my vision here. Unfortunately, and I'll remind you, at the beginning of this whole series, failure is an option, and I actually measured something incorrectly. It's fixable. You can always take more metal off, right? But I didn't take into account the irregularity of the back of this fly press. There's a big indentation that comes out here. This was only machined so far, so I'm going to have to take probably 1/4 of an inch off the back of this plate. to allow these holes to line up with the T-slots. That's a bummer. That's on me. You know, I could have put these bolts anywhere, but I thought I had measured it correctly. Measure twice, cut once, right? But I did not measure it correctly, so I'm going to have to take a little bit off the back edge. Not a big deal. And before I can mount this up, tram it in. All right, let's try this again. I went ahead and notched this. I took off, well, I wanted to make sure that this was one and done. So I took off 11 inches, slot 11 inches wide, went in an inch. I don't need the material, the surface. And now we can line this up and finish this video. That's the beauty of having your own CNC machine. You can just redesign this and change it on the fly, right? So let me get my bolts in and let's do this. And that's why I decided to go with the slot die, so I could just try and tram it in this way and forward and back. So angularly, and then just get it in X and Y as well. So let's find those T-slots. Let me put the die in. Okay, oh, let's put this in here first. Whoa. Oh, okay, those are very precise. All right, so got the Hardy cover plate installed. Let's tighten this up. And I'm gonna have to fish in the T-nuts. Where's my wrench? Will these fit? Yeah, that'll fit. And I can't put my finger in there that far, but I can use a file. And that should be good enough. So if I put this on here and then go in, might need a flashlight. Actually, what we can do, let's do this. Let's slide this one over here, get this one done, because I can reach that, or vice versa. And then I'll do the other one with the file. All right, I'll be right back. I'm not gonna make you guys watch this. And just snug these up. Not the easiest to thread those T-nuts in, but it's doable. All right, let's install this. I put this washer on so my wrench won't fall behind the nut. But anyway, get that in there. Put my die in. I mean my punch. I don't know if you could see that before, but there's the washer. It just like I said, it prevents my wrench from going behind the bolt. And then here is this flat, which will index with this set screw. Okay. All right, next step is to oh boy, is this gonna fit? All right, so here is issue number 2 that I've run into. In my hubris, or I don't know. Anyway, these T-slots are not in line with the center line of that ram. I mean, who would have thought that? They're behind it just a little bit. And I made an assumption that they would be in line. And I don't have enough play in these counterbore holes to move this plate back far enough yet. So I need to remachine this plate to give myself enough play in all directions in order to line it up properly with the center line of this ram. It's my bad. I mean, this was cast in a foundry, and then the surface was machined after the fact, and the T-slots were machined after the fact. It was never meant to accept something like this, but let me fix that. All right, let's try this again. So guys, I went ahead and threw it on the manual mill, and I shifted the plate this way 2 millimeters and this way 2 millimeters. I counterboarded it larger, 16 millimeters, and then bored out a new hole for these bolts. And now it fits. You want to make sure that it fits perfectly here, front and back, and then I'll tighten it. So I think that looks pretty good. Now while it's resting on the die, I'm hoping that'll hold it in place so I don't lose my tram. I'm going to tighten these bolts. Then we'll add some stripper clips and punch some steel. The way this video is going though, it's probably not going to work. Just kidding. Hopefully it'll work. Let's do it. I've got a fun idea. Before we do hot metal, let's see what happens if I try cardboard. I've never tried this before. Oh, there you go. Cool. All right. And another test. Let's see if it's repeatable front and back. So if I loosen this and then flip it this way, let's see if it lines up. Boy, I hope it does. We'll go slow at the end here. Yep, perfect. Good sign. Let's see. All right, I like it. And then if this was hot metal, that should clear. I've made this long enough to when I go to the end, it should clear, and it has. And then that cardboard will drop through this die, through the little square hardy hole, and down underneath the fly press, which it has. You can see those little slugs, or whatever you call them, filled right through. So I need to have some kind of bucket to catch those hot metal just falling right down onto that shelf. Or I'll leave the hardy in. If I'm only doing one, there's enough room in this to where I could just, there's enough room here where I could just pull this up and sweep the slugs out. Either way. All right, let's do some hot metal. Should probably pull this die off and blue it. Make it nice and black. Okay, I like to keep these a little loose. They don't need to be tight. Let's heat some metal up. All right, hot metal. one and done. Okay, cleared it. I think that worked pretty well for the first try. Punch looks good. Die looks good. And there you go. There's your slug. Oh shit. Of course I did. Alright. There's the slug. That looks nice. Yeah, I think that worked pretty well. So I answered my own question. I'm not going to leave this in when I'm punching. I will pull it out and put a bucket under there because you saw it went right in this hole and I don't want that to happen. I don't want any debris to get in there. But yeah, I think this was a success. There were definitely some obstacles. It's laughable, but such is life, you know. The obstacle is the way. You just lean into it and embrace the suck and learn from your mistakes. So this is just the beginning. I'm really excited. I've got a lot of other plans. This is, this is my 0-point plate. My 0 point is right here in the middle, center of this axis, in my X and my Y coordinate. And so as I make new dies, they should perfectly interface, as long as I do my machining right, with the center of this. So for example, I'm going to be setting up, I've got top and bottom, small rivets, medium and large. Those will have, some kind of base die where I can easily interchange those. I'll have bending dies, I'll have a butcher setup, fuller setup, just whatever I need to, for the projects I want to do. And this is what I want to do in my, in my retirement. I've been retired a couple of years. I built the shop. I foresaw that I was going to have a lot of downtime. I don't want to work for someone else. I don't mind working enough for me to make a little bit of money. And on that note, on the money note, I should just shout out to and thank, all of my subscribers, all of you guys that support me, especially all of the people who've taken the time to go into my Etsy shop and my website and check that out, and some of the purchases that I have. All of this was funded from money that I have been making doing metalwork. So that's pretty cool. So far I'm not turning really a profit on the business, but it's buying tools. And what more could you want? I've got my retirement pension, but that's for other life. That's for dinner and beers, right? Hopefully you see my vision. I hope you like it. I think it's pretty cool. Once again, thanks for tuning in. I'll catch you later. Bye.